Hello, everyone. This is Kim Schmidt with Farm Equipment. I am here today with Jim Wood, the Chief Sales and Operations Officer with Rocky Mountain Equipment up in Canada. And we are happy to have you on our Thought Leaders series. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, morning, Kim. Happy to be here.
So something we wanted to talk with you about was a little bit about Rocky Mountain's deal zone outlet model you guys have in place. I understand you guys have it set up a little bit differently than some other dealerships that have outlet stores. Can you just kind of explain a little bit your guys' model and how you approach it?
Yeah, sure. So we're Canadian. We're a Western Canadian company. We have 36 locations in Western Canada, and we now have a used equipment outlet in Tonganoxie, Kansas, which is just outside of Kansas City. The model is, it's considerably different than the traditional dealership model. There's no parts and service. It's basically just a used equipment sales outlet.
Okay. And why did you choose that Kansas location?
Well, a couple of reasons. It's very central for us. You know, we wanted access to the U.S. Used equipment market. We wanted something where we could haul equipment down on a backhaul. So Kansas City is fairly close to C&H's Combine Factory in Grand Island, Nebraska. So that was really kind of the two big factors. Was we wanted something central in the U.S. for the interest to the ag market, and something that we could subsidize our freight costs on.
Okay. Is there a similar outlet store in Canada as well, or is it just that Kansas City location?
Interestingly enough, we just announced to our organization that we will be setting one up in Canada probably within the next month.
Okay.
So we've had great success in Kansas, and we feel there's a need to have the similar model in Canada.
Okay. And then I've heard it kind of compared to CarMax on the auto side. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So the intent was to move late model used equipment. Something we felt was, I wouldn't call it a shortage, but there was a need in the U.S. market. We had plenty of it in Western Canada because our sales haven't slowed down since 2013 like the U.S. market has, as drastically. And so the majority of our used inventory is that late model used equipment. So that's what we started out with down there. And since then it's evolved. It's, we've added an extra salesperson, and we really, they have the ability to all of our used inventory in Canada. So it's definitely, it's opened us up to the market down there.
Okay. And then how do you determine what goes down there to the outlet versus what stays in a local branch?
Yeah, well, the way we treat it is when the local branch takes it in, it's available for sale all across Western Canada anyways.
Okay.
So this is just one more branch, let's say, that has the availability to that inventory. We don't hold it at a branch for a certain period. It's once we take it in, it's available to the whole complex. Okay.
So do you at some point physically move it down there though, or how do you determine that?
We do. It's when we first started it in the fall of 2018, we started moving equipment down there because our new sales are very heavily loaded to pre-sell, very heavily loaded to the fourth quarter. We ensured that we had the location set up in the fall of 2018, and then as we went down to the Combine Factory to pick equipment up to bring back for Q4, we would drop stuff off in Tonganoxie. Okay. Most of the equipment came out of, the southern part of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, and went down. And really, we try and have a healthy mix of equipment down there. Basically, what the demand of the phone calls are that they're getting. So they're getting a lot of calls on loader tractors. We'll try and make sure we have some loader tractors down there. But really, it's evolved to where they're selling, basically all over the U.S. Off the internet from any of our stores in Canada. So.
And then how I understand you guys have kind of put your focus generally for the business on selling used and less on new. Can you explain that strategy a little bit?
Yeah, so I would say the last 4 or 5 years, we average about $370 million a year in used equipment sales. And that's a lot of used equipment, and we look at it as a profit center. We make margin on our used, but then we're also always trying to have that healthy balance of a 1-on-1 ratio, and there's some years where we'll sell considerably more new than used, and then you start to see that used pile up. And we all know that used equipment it's a huge risk for a dealer group, but it's also, like I say, it's also a large source of our income. And so we've just taken a healthy approach that we want to get our used down to a manageable level, and in doing so, we had to purposely back off of the new business. Now, if you look at the industry, the first 3-4 months of the year, I believe our whole industry has done that. Mm-hmm. I think 4-wheel drives are down 37%, and combines are down about the same for the year. So we started about last July, just intentionally backing off of new sales. And at the time, we were dealing with our dysfunctional federal government's bickering with China, and so the market kind of helped us out on it, because it definitely slowed down. The Chinese embargo on canola helped with the industry slowing down, the demand slowing down, and we just had our focus on used equipment anyways. So
okay. And how has now moving into the second quarter, how has customer sentiment been and business been?
It's definitely Q1. We definitely had a lot less new sales than we did last year. Our used was only down by, I believe, about $9 million year over year, and that was pre-embargo last year. So I was fairly, I wouldn't say happy about it, but comfortable with it, mm-hmm. considering the month of March was a considerable crisis with the COVID outbreak, and we had already decided to back off of new to reduce our used inventories.
Okay.
So it really hasn't changed the virus hasn't changed any of our intent to sell less new and focus on used.
Okay. And
I would say the virus has really had more of an effect just overall on the producer sentiment, because mm-hmm. Like in Canada, we've actually seen commodities really hold steady. So,
okay, that's good.
So we haven't seen like the drop in corn prices like you've seen in the U.S., right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because of the what I believe is the demand for ethanol, so that's why corn is down. Whereas in Western Canada, wheat is strong, canola is starting to come back. So. With the push, there's another thing too. It's the safety. It's the consumer confidence in our food chain. Yeah. And with all this meat packing issues and coronavirus and like a lot of the Cargill plants, you've seen that we already had the kind of the focus on plant-based meats or plant-based fake meats, whatever you want to call it. But now all of a sudden you've seen more of that. So there's definitely there's going to be a bigger demand for pulses like peas, and because of just the fact that consumer, is probably a little less trusting in beef. Very unfortunate, because it's still very safe, but
right, yeah, it's not
like the cows get coronavirus, but it's that consumer confidence in the food supplies. And a lot of our customers in Western Canada spend a lot of their time in the U.S. during the winter. So Q1 is always interesting, trying to deal with, the customers that are maybe looking for things, but are looking to trade up or repurchase or something, but they're down in the U.S. And I would say the whole month of March and early April was them scrambling, trying to get back to Canada before the borders closed and everything like that. So for us to be down $9 million in used, considering the pandemic and most of the businesses in Western Canada closing, we're pretty, we're we're satisfied. And then you move into April. We had a really late spring. For those of your viewers that aren't familiar with our area of the world, it's cold. We have 4 seasons in one day some days. So, I would say for like right now for seeding and planting, we're probably in the southern part of our regions, they're probably 60% done, and in the northern parts, they're just getting going. Okay. So, parts and service business is strong, and used equipment is moving well. And really, the demand for new is whatever we make it, really, because our new business is very predictable. If we want, we don't have a lot of inventory on the ground. It's more of a pre-sell business that we've done. So that's really what we're managing right now, is just the pre-sales that are going to be done for Q3, Q4. So.
And then what's one thing you think dealers should be doing right now as it relates to the used equipment business to ensure their success in the future?
I think everyone's different, and it depends on the model and the size of their whether they're a 1 store or a 5 store. There's a lot of free advice out there on used equipment, and whether you take it in on trade and you don't book any margin till the last one goes out. I've heard that, and I've been doing this 32 years, and for 32 years, there always seems to be too much used equipment. I think in a lot of parts there isn't a lot of used equipment, and I would just say if you still need whole goods to run to have a healthy business, and go take those trades, but make sure you're booking them right and getting enough difference. The one thing I've seen is the manufacturers' programs have really changed over the years, where that one unit buyer coming in the door, they're at such a disadvantage over the large fleet customers that have considerably more acres and more equipment. So that really drives our late model used business. Mm-hmm. And I think you just have to have that healthy balance between the used equipment that is so devalued that there really is no resale value, and then the late model stuff that if you have too much, it can choke you. So.
And then what's one thing that dealers should not be doing right now?
Well, if you don't have a lot of used and you've done a great job cleaning up your inventories, which a lot of dealers have done, so kudos to them, is don't go do it again. Mm-hmm. There's a difference that the customer needs to pay based on the hours, based on the manufacturer's discounts, and there's always it always seems to be there's a manufacturer or a dealer that's willing to go do it for nothing, and if they're willing to do it for nothing, they usually end up, it always goes to hurt them in the end. And really, our philosophy is, when we're at this stage where we're busy trying to clean up our used inventory, and no, I don't mean clean up whereas the profile's wrong. It's just like I say, we have enough of it to go around. I just think the dealers need to be, they need to be cognizant that in the end, the producer needs to pay, right? Mm-hmm. So either the manufacturer pays, the dealer takes less margin, or the customer pays more. And they just need that healthy balance, because it doesn't matter if you're an organization our size or if you have 1 store, there needs to be some margin on the front end of a whole goods deal, or it's never going to work. And
then you'll be speaking this summer at our Dealership Mind Summit with the Profit Turning Trades theme. For anyone who's still on the fence about coming to the meeting or thinking about it, what would you say to them?
Well, I know I'm quite entertaining, so there you go. Hopefully I'll be able to get a haircut by then. Yeah. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you go to a dealer association convention or a manufacturer dealer meeting. It doesn't matter. Like I say, it doesn't matter if you have 1 store or 36 stores. We all have that common bond that we're trying to sell farm equipment. We all have the same challenges, whether if you're big or small. And I think it's always nice to sit down and talk to somebody that is going through the same challenges that you have, maybe some different ideas, some best practices. I think a lot, all the dealer groups out there are, they're challenging their staff. They're trying to come up with different ways to just to be more efficient in a shrinking market. So I know I enjoy just seeing a bunch of dealers. A lot of the dealers are friends, and I would encourage everybody to come.
All right. Well, we are looking forward to seeing you in Omaha in a few months. All right. Well, that's all I had. Anything else that we might have missed that you wanted to touch on?
No, just everybody be safe, and let's get through this COVID thing and on to the next pandemic.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Kim.